They didn't just hurt you. They manipulated your emotions until you began to doubt yourself. In toxic relationships, what drains you isn't just the arguments. It's the silent psychological warfare you didn't even realize you were trapped in. When you decide to go no contact with a narcissist, it's more than just walking away. It's a direct blow to the illusionary world they've carefully constructed. And in that moment, a hidden battle begins. They can no longer control you, so they target your guilt as their last weapon to pull you back in. In today's video, we'll peel back the layers of their disguise, from how they plant seeds of doubt and distort your memories to how they turn your compassion into chains. This isn't just psychology theory. It's the real experience of countless people who once loved, once hoped, and finally broke free from the cycle of manipulation. If you've ever felt guilty for defending yourself or been swayed by words that seemed harmless, then this video is for you. Hit subscribe if you're searching for clarity and true peace. And don't leave halfway, because by the end of the video, you'll understand why your silence is what they fear the most. Part 1. When you withdraw, they don't see silence. They see an accusation. In the narcissist's world, you're not seen as a separate person. You're a mirror. A tool they use to reflect the image they want to believe about themselves. Powerful, loved, admired, and always right. Every time you forgave, excused, or overlooked their hurtful behavior, they took it as proof. I still control reality. But when you suddenly cut contact, when you stop replying, stop reacting, stop pleading, and don't even offer an explanation, you're not just silent. In their eyes, you're passing judgment. You're declaring without saying a word, I see who you really are, and I no longer accept it. To a narcissist, the truth is the most dangerous thing. They've spent their entire lives hiding behind masks. And if someone removes that mask even through silence, it's unbearable. You may have had no intention to hurt them, no goal to expose them, no desire to shame them. But the truth you now see is a direct threat to the fantasy world they live in. That's why they don't react like most people when they're left. They don't grieve or learn to let go. They don't reflect or grow. Instead, they react like a child robbed of their most prized toy. They rage, they panic, and they begin their final game manipulating you through guilt. You need to understand this. A narcissist doesn't love you the way you think. To them, you're not a soul to connect with. You're a supply to be extracted. Your presence in their life is necessary, not because you're special, but because you're easy to influence. So when you withdraw, you don't just reclaim your freedom. You remove the mirror they used to reflect their carefully constructed ego. And that creates a terrifying void, not because they miss you, but because they miss the constant validation that they are still important, still right, still powerful. In the narcissist's mind, you don't get to walk away without punishment. Cutting contact without explanation is a fatal blow to their sense of power. It's a declaration, I'm no longer controlled by you, and so they won't let you go easily. Not with force, but with psychological warfare. That's when they begin to manipulate you by planting a single question in your mind. Am I the bad one? They won't blatantly call you cruel. They'll speak in a wounded voice. I can't believe you do this to me. I just want to understand, why did you leave like that? I thought you were different from everyone else. These lines sound soft, vulnerable, even sincere. But in truth, they are emotional landmines aimed at your moral compass. If you're someone with empathy, someone who reflects, who loves, you'll begin to wonder, was I too harsh? Was I heartless? The moment you begin to doubt yourself, they've regained a sliver of control. Here's the danger. Narcissists don't just manipulate with words, they manipulate with meanings. They take your healthy actions, setting boundaries, staying silent, walking away, and label them with guilt-inducing tags, selfish betrayal, cold. And then you begin questioning yourself, not because you did something wrong, but because they've flipped your internal moral compass. When you say, I need space, they say, so you're abandoning me. When you say, I don't want to be insulted anymore, they say, you're punishing me. When you go silent, they say, you're cold and unfeeling, and if you're not firmly grounded, you might believe them. Narcissists cannot handle a reality where you are strong, independent, and awakened. They need you weak, confused, and desperate for forgiveness, even if you've done nothing wrong. They need you back not because they've changed, but because they've never controlled anyone as well as they controlled you. You may think you've left them far behind, but if you still feel guilty for protecting yourself, they're still alive in your mind. They don't need to call you. They don't need to text. They only need one thing, you, to doubt yourself. And that is why your quiet withdrawal is the most terrifying thing to them. Because silence cannot be argued with. Silence leaves no loopholes for excuses. Silence is a final verdict they cannot reverse because it comes from someone who once loved them, once tried, and finally saw the truth. Part 2. The weapon called guilt and why it targets good people. When kindness becomes a double-edged sword and guilt is no longer remorse but a trap, no one teaches you that sometimes your goodness is the first thing that gets exploited. That your kindness, empathy, and desire not to hurt anyone can be twisted into a rope that ties you to a cycle with no escape. A narcissist does not love you the way you understand love. They don't see you as a person with an inner world fears or a past that deserves healing. They see you as an opportunity, someone with enough moral integrity to be manipulated by that very integrity. And guilt is the greatest psychological lever they use. But you need to understand this. The guilt they plant in you doesn't come from doing something wrong. It comes from doing what's right but going against their desires. You set a clear boundary. They say you're selfish. You don't respond to their message. They say you're cold and cruel. You say I need space to heal. They say, you're abandoning me when I need you most. None of those words sound like attacks. On the contrary, they wear the costume of victimhood. They make you feel like the one who's done harm even though you're simply protecting yourself. How can someone make you feel wrong for doing what's right? The answer lies in how well they know you. They know you're someone with a conscience. Someone who thinks before they speak. Someone who loses sleep when they've hurt someone. Someone who constantly asks themselves, was I too harsh? Could I have said it more gently? Should I give one more chance? They don't need long to figure out what kind of person you are. And because you're that kind of person, they don't need to scream. They only need to shed one well-timed tear. They don't need to call you cruel, they just have to say, I'm hurt. They don't need to call you a traitor, just whisper, I thought you were different. And suddenly you feel guilty. Not because you did something wrong, but because you feel like you're no longer the good person you thought you were. They don't attack your weaknesses. They exploit your strengths. This is the most insidious cruelty. The narcissist doesn't exploit the worst in you. They exploit the best. They see your loyalty and use it to make you feel guilty for walking away. They see your kindness and twist it into a duty to stay. They see your compassion and distort it into weakness. They know if they outright called you a bad person, you wouldn't believe them. But if they can make you question whether you're still ideal, you'll hurt, and they never even had to raise their voice. They don't hit you. They make you question yourself. And why is guilt in their hands so dangerous? Because guilt, when born from true awareness and responsibility, is a sacred emotion. It drives people to make things right, to grow, to become better versions of themselves. But when guilt is manipulated, it no longer helps you evolve. It keeps you stuck. Distorted guilt convinces you that you must apologize, not because you were wrong, but because they're in pain. Twisted guilt makes you believe your silence is an act of violence. False guilt makes you question even your most basic needs for rest, for peace, for authenticity. It makes you live like you owe someone a debt when they're the one who hurt you again and again. They don't need to be right. They only need you to feel wrong. That's the tactic. If you feel like you're the problem, you'll initiate the apology. If you feel like you're too sensitive, you'll try to tolerate just a little more. If you feel like you're not as kind as you used to be, you'll lower your standards and settle for less than you deserve. And that's how they come back. No apology, no change, no effort. Just your belief that walking away was a mistake. So if you're feeling guilty, pause. Ask yourself, what did I really do wrong? If the answer is, I was simply trying to protect myself, I was just preserving my peace of mind. Then remember, that is not guilt. That is survival. You are not obligated to stay in a relationship that makes you question your own moral compass. You are not responsible for healing someone who refuses to heal themselves. You don't need to apologize for saying no. You don't owe an explanation for choosing silence. And you certainly don't have to return just because a voice in your head whispers, maybe you're the one to blame. Guilt is a sacred emotion, but not when it's manufactured to keep you in pain. If someone makes you feel wrong for being true to yourself, they are not someone you need to forgive. They are someone you need to walk away from. Part 3. Redefining truth. When your memory becomes a battlefield. The invisible battlefield. When your memory becomes the target of manipulation. You might have believed that truth is sacred, that what you saw, heard, and felt was something no one could take away from you. But to a narcissist, truth isn't a boundary. It's raw material to be reshaped into a tool of control. They don't just manipulate your emotions, they manipulate your memories. And the terrifying part is it works. Gaslighting, a word familiar to anyone who has survived a toxic relationship, isn't simply lying. Gaslighting is the art of making you doubt the very things you saw with your own eyes, felt with your own heart, and confirmed with your own intuition. You're just too sensitive. A simple sentence, yet laced with quiet destruction. At first you push back. No, you clearly said that. They smile faintly. I really don't understand why you always see things so negatively. You hesitate. Maybe. I misunderstood. And the moment you question your own memory, they've found their entry point. From then on, every argument, every moment of discomfort, they don't need to justify their actions. They only need to repeat one thing. You're overreacting again. I don't remember saying that. Maybe you're just projecting the past onto the present. And so you begin to rewrite the story in your own mind. From a single seed of doubt, they craft a new map where the truth no longer belongs to you. You start editing your memories to make them easier to live with. You brush aside the yelling, the sarcasm, the belittling glances. You close your eyes to moments when you clearly saw their cold indifference because you're no longer sure. Was I imagining it? A narcissist doesn't need to violently erase your memories. They just need to blur the edges enough so you stop trusting what you know. Memory once doubted stops being a safe place to return to and becomes a minefield. We often think we control our memories. But the truth is, memory is fragile, easily influenced by emotion, tone, and the people we love. And the narcissist knows this. They plant seeds of uncertainty. I remember things differently than you. Why do you hold on to old stuff? Most people wouldn't be this sensitive. These aren't harmless denials. They're a full-scale campaign to dismantle your inner compass. And when you can no longer trust your feelings, your memories, or your gut, you begin to trust them more than you trust yourself. And they know once you start needing someone else to validate your reality, the loudest voice in your head will be theirs. You feel angry, they call you grudgeful. You feel sad, they call you too emotional. You feel anxious, they say you're making up scenarios in your head, and you start to hate yourself for feeling. You no longer dare to speak your truth. You're left with two options. Stay silent so you're not seen as too sensitive, or try to change to become more reasonable in their eyes. But the truth is, you're changing yourself to meet a standard that doesn't exist, a standard designed only to keep you under their influence. And in the end, you're no longer you. You become the easier to manage version of yourself, not because you're weak, not because you lack intelligence, but because narcissists don't use brute force. They manipulate you into gradually doubting what you know to be true. They don't force you to kneel. They make you believe that kneeling is the rational thing to do. But the truth never left. It's still there beneath the fog. And when you begin to wake up again, when those flashes of clarity break through, you realize the truth was never gone. You were just persuaded for too long that you didn't have the right to claim it. Your memory is not broken. Your emotions are not weakness. The pain you carry isn't too sensitive. It's the signal that someone tried to distort your inner reality for their benefit. And when you withdraw, they don't give up, they only hope that you still doubt yourself. Because if you still doubt, the trap hasn't been broken. If you still think, maybe it wasn't that bad, they still have a way back in. They count on you remembering a happy memory instead of a pattern of harm. They hope you cling to the apology instead of seeing the repeated behaviors. They bet that with time your memory will soften, and they will return not to apologize, but to rewrite the next chapter in a way that serves them. Part 4. They don't need to appear to manipulate you as long as you still remember them. When your silence echoes like an accusation, and they wait for the ghost of doubt to rise, you've withdrawn. No messages, no calls, no explanations. You thought silence would be the end. But to a narcissist, silence is not the conclusion, it's the beginning of a new psychological war. They no longer need to attack directly. They know the real fear doesn't lie in shouting, but in emptiness. And they're betting that you, someone once too kind, too genuine, too empathetic, won't be able to endure the very silence you created. Because they've programmed your mind with countless voices that now still echo. You think you've walked away, but their voice remains in your head. Are you sure you're not overreacting? I really tried, but you never saw it. No one understands you like I do. These are no longer spoken lines. They've become background noise in your inner world. As you lie in bed in silence and darkness, the questions begin to creep in. Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I did abandon them. Maybe I was part of the problem. You don't see anyone asking you to come back, but you feel the pull. Not because they called you, but because they taught you to question yourself. This is when the real psychological warfare begins. No words, only echoes. The narcissist knows an attack doesn't need to be loud. They don't need to be physically present. They only need one thing for doubt, to be rooted deep enough in you that even in their absence you still feel like you're the one doing something wrong. And the emptiness which should have been the space for your healing becomes a silence poisoned by the memories they left behind. You start rereading old messages. You go over things they once said. You scan for signs. Were they really that bad? And suddenly, you who once left with certainty begin to reconsider going back. They're counting on one thing, that time will wear down your boundaries. To a narcissist, time isn't for healing. Time is a strategy. They know that if they leave you alone long enough, you won't find clarity, you'll find loneliness. And in that loneliness, they're betting you'll revisit the relationship not through clarity, but through a craving for connection. You start remembering their tenderness, the hugs, the moments when they seemed to understand you. You forget the sarcasm, the long silences, the psychological games that broke you down. Your memory starts to filter, and they know that's when it's time to return. They don't need to say anything, they only need you to feel uncertain. In this psychological game, the narcissist isn't racing against time, they're racing against your will. And because they once had direct access to your heart, they know when you're vulnerable. They know you soften when someone appears to be in pain. They know you hate being the one who causes harm, even when you were the one hurt first. And they bet everything on that internal conflict, the one between protecting yourself and the fear of being unkind. They plant silence so you'll imagine the wrong story. You begin to wonder, are they suffering right now? If I stay silent, am I being cruel? What if they really have changed? And maybe you'll draft a message, not send it, just write it. But in that moment, the moment you wish they could understand you, they've already won. They don't need you to hit send. They just need to know you still have questions in your heart. And silence, if you're not careful, can become a distorted mirror that reflects a false truth. The narcissist hopes for one thing, that without someone affirming your truth, you'll start to believe you were wrong. They isolate you so you forget why you left. They withdraw so you fill in the blanks. And when you imagine, you fill the silence with things they can control: guilt, pity, regret. But you must remember, Silence is not cruelty. Silence is recovery. No contact is not punishment. Not responding is not heartless. Silence is not abandonment. Silence is the act of saving your soul from a cycle of manipulation. You owe them no explanation. You don't need to prove you're grieving. You don't need to show them you're a good person because leaving was the final act of kindness you gave to yourself. And if in the stillness of night you ever feel like you're cruel for being silent, remember, the only one who ever made you feel that way was them. Part 5. The tears aren't for you. They're for the power that was lost. Tears aren't apologies, they are cries for lost control. There is one thing a narcissist understands all too well: the calculated power of vulnerability. When you're gone, when you stop replying to messages, when the door you closed starts to grow colder with time, they don't knock. They cry in front of it. And they know that for those with soft hearts, a tear can be more persuasive than 1,000 pleas. You receive a message, short but heavy. I haven't been able to sleep since you left. No one understands me like you do. I know I messed up, but I don't know how to fix it. Don't be mistaken. These words don't come from awakening. They come from a loss of control. They're not in pain because they hurt you. They're in pain because they can no longer affect you. This is not an apology, it's a strategy. A narcissist doesn't feel remorse like a healed person does. They don't reflect and say, I hurt someone. I need to change. They look at the consequences and say, I lost control. I need to get it back. And they know you, the one who held them when they broke down, who stayed through the stories of their broken childhood, who forgave every cold silence. You have a soft spot, compassion, so they don't apologize with insight. They don't say, I've taken time to reflect. They say, I can't live without you. They don't say, I want to be better. They say, I'm hurting. How can you just leave me? They don't need you to believe they've changed. They just need you to believe they're suffering. Because here's the truth. Good people tend to help the hurting, even when the hurting person was the one who caused the pain. The narcissist isn't asking for your forgiveness. They're forcing you to face your own compassionate nature and ask yourself, if I'm truly a good person, how can I walk away? And that's when the confusion begins. Not because you believe they've changed, but because you can't bear the thought of becoming heartless. This is where compassion becomes a trap when it's not paired with boundaries. You were taught that love means never giving up on someone. You once believed everyone deserves a second chance. You thought that if you were patient enough, kind enough, good enough, they would change. And they, the narcissist, use that exact belief to come back. They don't need to persuade you with logic. They only need to make you feel that not helping them is a moral failure. They pull you into a battle between the truth you know and the person you want to be. And if you're not grounded, you'll choose being kind over being safe. They don't need your forgiveness. They need your nostalgia. They don't return because they've changed. They return hoping your memories have softened. They'll remind you of tender moments. They'll press on chapters of your past where you once believed maybe they're hurting too. Maybe they need me. They'll say in a trembling voice, you're the only one I ever opened up to about my childhood pain. I don't express well, but I've never been real with anyone but you. You're the only one who truly knows me. And all of those lines share one truth. They are not about you. They're about them and their need for you to save them. But you are not the savior of someone who refuses to heal. You were not born to carry the pain they refuse to face. You were not created to fill a void they carved into themselves. And you certainly do not owe your return just because they're crying. A tear cannot erase hundreds of times they twisted your reality. A sorrowful sentence cannot erase a history of manipulation, control, and devaluation. And you are not cruel for not going back. You are courageous. The truth is, if they were truly in pain, they would let you go in peace, not try to drag you back into the storm. Someone who is truly sorry will give you space. Someone who is truly awakened won't pull you into old patterns. Someone who truly loves you won't weaponize their pain to provoke your compassion. A narcissist does this not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of losing the version of you they once controlled. And if you find yourself typing a long message explaining why you needed to leave, if you feel your heart soften as you read their sorrowful words, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, are they in pain because they lost me, or because they lost their ability to control me? The answer lies here. You withdrew and they hurt. But instead of healing, they try to pull you back to fill that emptiness. That is not love. That is a hunger for power dressed in emotion. Silence is not the end. It's your beginning. After all the words, the mind games, the long nights wrestling with your own heart, you finally chose the one thing the narcissist never expected. Silence. Not silence as punishment. Not silence because you stopped caring, but silence to protect what was left of you, the parts they hadn't yet taken. Because in toxic relationships, leaving isn't just a step, it's a quiet declaration. I choose peace over chaos. I choose truth over illusion. And most of all, I choose myself. The narcissist may never understand you. They will twist the reason you left. They will play the victim. They will plant seeds of doubt, throw blame, and even stage a final act of awakening. But you know what's real, because you lived it day by day with every beat of your heart. You are not selfish for walking away. You are not cruel for cutting ties. You didn't betray anyone except the illusions that once kept you bound. If you betrayed anything, it was fear. And if you chose anything, it was freedom. The road ahead might be lonely. It might blur the lines between guilt and relief. But you'll feel it every cell in your body slowly coming back to life, no longer shrinking to understand someone else, no longer sacrificing your emotions to keep someone else happy. And if today you're walking that road, please remember this. You are not lost. You are not weak. You are stronger than you've ever been because you dared to let go of something that once convinced you it was everything. If you see yourself in these words, if you've ever felt torn between love and pain, if you're learning to name again what you truly deserve, then this video was made just for you. Click. Subscribe to walk with us on this journey of healing. Leave a comment if you're somewhere on that path. You are not alone. And don't forget to share this video with someone who needs it. Because when we begin to speak the truth, healing begins. Thank you for watching until the end. You no longer belong to the storm. You're learning to live as the calm sky beyond it.